Hi, I'm Stephanie Strange. Want to hear something scary?
Hello there, I hope you're excited as I am now that we have new videos on the first Tuesday of every month. And we're hoping that we can bring back the weekly videos very, very soon. In addition, I'll be doing email submissions from you guys and making videos out of them on the second week of the month. And I'll be doing monthly live streams again on the last week of every month. When there's not a new video, we'll be doing compilations from our incredible archive of the scariest stories from around the world, so we hope you enjoy.
When Alan was 14, he visited Taiwan for the first time. His parents were from there, but he had never been, and they wanted to bring him back during the Hungry Ghost Festival so he could celebrate his fallen ancestors. Being from the United States, Alan was unfamiliar with just about everything in Taiwanese culture. During this month-long ghost festival, it was believed that ghosts haunted the island of Taiwan for the entire month because the gates of hell were opened on the first day, and the spirits were meant to disperse on the last day. In between, the ghosts had free reign. This was their chance for redemption. There were many rules for the living to follow during Ghost Month in order to avoid confrontation with these spirits. Alan was not familiar with many of these superstitions and did not take the ones he knew very seriously. One of the most revered superstitions was not to stay out after midnight. Being a teen, Alan didn't really follow a lot of rules, let alone ones for ghosts he didn't even believe in. He played along with his family as they did various traditions during the month, like when they burnt paper money on the first day of the month, and later on laid out food and drink offerings for spirits. But after they went to bed on the last night of the month, Alan finally decided to sneak out. On this particular night, many families light paper lanterns and send them down the river as a decoy to draw the ghosts away from their homes. The ghosts follow the lights and drift away from the families, eventually making their way back to hell. On this last night, Alan wanted to watch the paper lanterns. He thought they were beautiful and peaceful to watch. He wasn't afraid. Alan snuck out and made his way down to the riverbank, where he saw dozens of lanterns floating peacefully by. He sat down in the grass and watched. After a while, the temperature dropped significantly. He got a chill and goosebumps trickled down his spine. He shook it off and rubbed his arms together for warmth, but he just kept getting colder. Finally, he decided to give up and go back home. And just as he stood up, all of the lanterns blew out at once. Alan froze, looked around, and saw nothing but darkness. He didn't feel wind or water, anything that could have blown the lanterns out, just cold air and the darkness that now enveloped him. Until he saw ghosts. Suddenly, they were everywhere, surrounding him, swooping in, pulling his hair, his clothes, cackling with glee, screaming into his ears. Alan screamed in terror and ran from the riverbank, swatting at the ghosts like a swarm of bees that had engulfed him. He stumbled onto a road and ran down it until he reached a bus stop. The ghosts followed, taunting him, pulling at his arms and legs, tripping him, hurting him. Alan thought they were going to rip him apart, until suddenly a bus appeared out of nowhere. Alan sprang up and leapt onto the bus just as the doors opened, and as quickly as it had appeared, the bus took off. It moved so fast that Alan couldn't see where they were or what they were passing outside the windows. He caught his breath for a moment, relieved and shaken. He turned around to see who else was riding this bus at this late hour, but he saw no other people. No other living people, that is. As Alan scanned the rows behind him, dozens of ghosts appeared out of thin air, jeering and menacing. Alan felt his body temperature drop again and his muscles stiffen. He turned to shout at the driver to stop, but it was no use. The driver was a mangled ghost with one arm and a backwards-facing head. He stared at Alan as if he was his next tasty meal, and Alan screamed at the top of his lungs, knowing This was it. He was surrounded by ghosts, hungry ghosts, on the last night of the festival, and he had accidentally caught the ghost bus straight back to hell. Alan had a terrifying thought. You can't go to hell if you're still alive. And that's when the ghosts closed in on him, launching themselves from their seats and pouncing on Alan like a pride of lions on a gazelle. They tore him apart as the bus zoomed down to another dimension, returning all of the ghosts and the newly deceased Alan straight to hell, never to be seen again.
This happened when I was about 11 years old and lived with my 17-year-old sister Manika and my grandmother. I was sitting at the table eating dinner with my grandma when Manika quickly rushed inside. "You're home late," Grandma commented, but Manika didn't respond. Grandma called over to her to join us for dinner, but she just walked right past us and straight to her room. "Teenagers, so moody," Grandma said. I was pretty close to my sister. We weren't that far apart in age, and we could usually talk about anything. She did have a tendency to be moody, but I could feel that something was different about tonight. So after dinner, I gently knocked on her door and asked if everything was okay. "I just need to be alone right now." I shrugged and headed to my own room, followed by our family dog, Snoopy. I laid in bed, but was having a hard time falling asleep. I felt really anxious and restless for some reason. I didn't understand why. Hours went by, and I had given up on trying to fall asleep. I decided to take Snoopy out for a 3 a.m. walk. The neighborhood was quiet and calm. Snoopy was happily sniffing around. Then I heard a rustling from a bush a couple meters in front of us. From the bushes emerged what looked like a mangy black dog. There were a lot of strays in this part of town, so I wasn't too surprised and continued forward. But Snoopy wasn't moving. I looked down and was shocked to see him low on the ground, sneering. "It's just a dog, Snoop," I said as I yanked on his leash. But Snoopy was not budging. His sneering turned into growling. I looked back towards the stray dog and watched as the dark figure stood up, reaching its full height. That was no dog. At this point, Snoopy was barking wildly at the creature. I pulled his leash and ran in the opposite direction. I could hear the booming footsteps of that thing chasing after us.
"Why don't you play with me?"
It asked tauntingly. I refused to turn around or speak to it. My grandmother was a very spiritual person, and she had always told me to never engage with a spirit that's trying to get your attention. That's how you invite them into your life. So I just kept running, Snoopy following closely by my side. Luckily, my neighborhood had a lot of temples, almost one every 200 meters. I ran towards one of them and slammed the door shut behind me. I waited and listened. The footsteps outside slowed down and came to a halt. "I'll come back for you." I fell to the ground and caught my breath. Snoopy and I stayed there until the sun rose. When we got back to our house, my grandmother and sister were already at the dining room table eating breakfast. "I saw something last night. It was this thing. It was chasing us." I was struggling to find the words to describe what I saw, but even then, my grandmother knew what it was. "You didn't talk to it, did you?" "No, of course not. But Grandma, what was that?" It was most likely a chalava. It means illusionist or shapeshifter. They're created when an unborn child dies and the respected ceremonies aren't performed. And since the child's spirit couldn't take a good earthly form, they inhabit whatever form they can. Usually, a malicious one. Manika covered her mouth. This seemed to really be upsetting her. "Where did you see the chalava?" Grandma asked. "Out by that field where the stray dogs usually are." "Ah, that makes sense. There used to be a hospital over there. It was shut down when they discovered that a doctor was performing unauthorized abortions." Manika burst into tears. "What's wrong, Manika? You've been acting so strangely lately." "That chalava, it's my fault.
I'm so sorry, Gaurav.
Manika ran back to her room. My grandma told me that she was just being moody, but it wasn't until a few years later that I fully understood what had happened that night.
Two 12-year-old girls from South Korea, Mi and Jin, had just arrived at camp for the summer. Both had never been before, although Mi frequently camped with her family. Their first day was exciting, getting to know their fellow campers and doing outdoor activities. At the end of the day, the camp quickly quieted down during the night, but Jen couldn't sleep. She wanted to explore more of the campgrounds at night. She woke up Mi and fibbed that she needed someone to go to the bathroom with her. Jen knew if she told Mi her true intentions, that she would never go. Mi always followed the rules, while Jen would question why there were rules in the first place. Once they arrived at the small building holding the bathrooms, Jen figured she might as well go while she figured out how to get Mi to go exploring. Mi, eager to get back to bed, told her, "I'll stay out here and wait for you." As soon as Jen entered the bathroom, she felt something was off. It was freezing in there. She flipped the light switch on. One dimly lit bulb flickered on, just barely enough to make out the bathroom stalls directly in front of her. Shivering, suddenly having to go to the bathroom more than ever, she started moving towards the stalls. Reaching out her hand to the first stall, she felt something like strands of hair whip across her face. Stunned, she jumped back. In the corner of her eye, something moved off to the right of her. Spinning towards it, a woman with long black hair covering her face stood in the corner, silent, waiting. Jen abruptly turned around and sped out the door. Grabbing Mi, she pushed her towards the path back to their cabin. All thoughts of exploration forgotten, Jen couldn't have seen what she just saw. It must have been her imagination getting the best of her. "Are you okay?" Mi chuckled. "I thought for sure you got me out here so you could go exploring." Jen stammered. "I thought I saw something, someone, a camper maybe? It kind of looked like something from a horror movie, I don't know." Mi stopped dead in her tracks, looking behind Jen at the bathroom door. "Wait," she looked very concerned. "What's the date?" Jen stopped, staring at Mi, wondering what was going on. Mi continued worriedly. "It's the XXXVIII. On dates with a 6 in it, the only way to safely use a bathroom at night is to cough 3 times before entering and to carry food as tribute. Otherwise, the XXXVIII could find you. The good news is that there is only one of her, and she is only in one bathroom at a time. If she is here, you must appease her." Jen blinked, staring at me, waiting for her to say she was joking. "Appease her?" "Yes, you must appease her, or she will follow you home." Having said that, Mi pulled a dry rice ball from her pocket and ran back toward the outhouse, placing it at the doorway. The two girls ran back to their cabin. By the time Jen had tucked herself back into her bunk, she remembered how weird Mi could be at times with her superstitions. And also, she was more convinced than ever it had to just have been another camper using the bathroom. Around midnight, Jen woke up having to go so badly that she didn't even think to wake up Mi as she dashed out of bed and ran to the bathroom building. When she got to the bathroom door, fear struck her and stopped her dead in her tracks. "I could just go outside, I guess," she thought as she swung her flashlight back out towards the dark, dark woods surrounding and encroaching upon the bathroom building. "Or not," Jen quickly thought to herself. "Look, the rice ball is still there, so the XXXVIII is appeased. And besides, that's all stupid anyway. I've been using bathrooms all my life. I'll be quick." After Jen stepped inside, she then remembered what she had forgotten to do, to cough 3 times. Jen felt thick strands of hair quickly coil around her neck like a snake. Confused, she reached for the hair to pull it away, but it tightened, trapping her, strangling her so she couldn't make a sound. Lifted into the air by her neck, the pressure increasing around it, the long strands surrounded Jen, wrapping her in a deadly embrace. The XXXVIII sat on the ceiling. It was the woman-like figure that Jen had seen before. Lifting her new prey up into her arms, the goddess pushed its face against hers, breathing in the shallow breaths coming out of Jen's body.
"I would have followed you home, but I was too hungry.
So this time, it will only be you. At that, the Cha'akuchin moved towards the toilet, which transformed into a bottomless pit. The goddess hurriedly dragged Jin's hair-wrapped body down into the pit with her. She was in such a hurry that the stall changed back into a toilet before her entire body came through, cutting off Jin's left arm, leaving the chopped limb in the stall for the other campers to find the next morning.
Thanks so much for listening. Like and share if this video gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. See you next time.